Well, here we have a story here. Half century ago in Jonesboro, armed black men fought back. I'm Grid 7, and today I got kind of two stories that I think blended into one if you know your history. I just want to kind of do a little bit right here, just kind of read this area if you want to. It's an advertiser, you can look it up on Google. I just want to go, on a July night in Jonesboro in 1964, the rumble of engines encroached on a quiet black neighborhood, then known as the Quarters. As residents stepped out onto the porches, they observed a line of cars, maybe 50 in all, with 2 to 4 men in each vehicle, their faces covered with white robes. As the Ku Klux Klan motorcade lit up by the assistant chief police car in front paraded through the neighborhood, the intruders jeered and cursed. In their wake, sheets of paper fluttered through the air before settling on the unpaved road. Alarmed parents instructed their children to stay inside and away from the windows. Now, once the cars moved on, neighbors gathered litter from the streets. The KKK leaflets threatened retaliation if African Americans engaged with the Congress of Racial Equality, a civil rights group that associated black communities with voter registration and integration of public facilities. They would go into black neighborhoods and intimidate black people. The KKK would. That was 50 years ago. Just recently, some protests against police brutality take a more confrontational approach. This is by the New York Times. The protests are moving into white residential neighborhoods where activists demand people choose a side. Terrence Moses was watching protesters against police brutality march down his quiet residential street one recent evening when some of the group of a few hundred suddenly stopped and started yelling. Mr. Moses was initially not sure what the protesters were upset about, but as he got closer he saw it. His neighbors had an American flag on display. The horror. It went from a peaceful march calling out the names to all of a sudden, bang, how dare you fly the flag. Gee, no, in this other story here, if you kind of look at it, they just peacefully jeered on through the street. But this is really, no, this was considered racist, bad. But over here, oh, we're okay with it. We're okay with these people coming through. And as Mr. Moses said, we don't go around terrorizing folks to try and force them to do something they don't want to do. But yet, no, as it says, the more aggressive protests target ordinary people going about their lives, especially those who decline to demonstrate allegiance to the cause. In other words, if you don't say you're for the cause, they're going to terrorize you. That's not much more than what the KKK was doing 50 years ago. No, I'm sure many people have seen the diner in Washington who refused to raise her fist to show support for Black Lives Matter. All she probably wanted to do was eat her meal in peace. No, several cities confused drivers happened upon these protests by accident. And suddenly they're in the middle of they're fearful for their life. No, it is true. The tactics are dividing the supporters of Black Lives Matter. And I hate to say it, they are playing into conservatives' critiques of the protests. I'm sure, this is New York Times, so they are liberal, so they do find people who are for this type thing. As this one guy here, Stephen Green, says, we don't need allies anymore. We need accomplices. Kind of sounds like a bit like the KKK. We just need more people with hoods to terrorize and intimidate other people. I mean, they go on. Portland, Jesse Burke, who owns a coffee shop. Everyone's looking for solutions at first, but now it's just a nightly fight that's gotten progressively more violent. It's wake up, wake up. You need to be in the streets protesting if you stand for this. No, I want to get some fucking sleep. That's what I want. He said no. It kept his 7-year-old daughter awake. Now over here, alarmed parents instructed their children to stay inside and away from the windows. What do you think he probably did? He was probably alarmed and told his kid to stay away from the windows. And the biggest problem right here, the crowd was, I won't even say mostly white, I'll say almost exclusively white. Now, these people don't care about BLM. All they're doing is look at what we're doing. And as for the American flag, I mean, these people are so hatred of America that they're so triggered over just a flag that it's unreal. I'm glad right now he says he won't take down the flag, because he has every right to fly it, just like they have every right to. I don't know if they actually have the right to go through the neighborhood like that, but it's one of those. If you come to the door night after night, people are going to get pissed at you. Of course, these are the same protesters who broke into the Portland Police Association building and set it on fire. I wonder how much evidence and stuff was destroyed for crimes and stuff that they were working on to give justice to some black family. They say the PPB is the KKK. No, they're the ones actually acting like what the KKK was. Some residents in Portland say the tactics are escalating as the protests become increasingly dominated by white people. In other words, BLM, your thing's being taken over by white Marxists. That's what's happening. They're pushing for Marxism and socialism, using your platform to do it. And you're okay with it. You're allowing them to do it. You're allowing them to take your power away. Now, they do say there were 2 different protests. One was peaceful and the other one more organized by Antifa groups. And this one right here, they don't just want you showing support. One white man stepped onto his patio clapping and hollering in support of the march. The group called for him to join. He smiled, waved, and still clapped. They then began to chant he was spineless. He looked worried, but the march moved on and he went back inside his house. Meanwhile, the protesters are saying, "You'll never sleep tight. We do this every night." What they're doing is they're making people want to go out, arm themselves to protect themselves. And it's going to get violent. And not the way these people are expecting. Now, probably the first people in some of this that's going to die will be these protesters. But that's because they're idiots. They don't know their history. They're repeating history. They're doing exactly what the KKK did, marching into black neighborhoods and intimidating them to do what they wanted. So, of course, it's not a surprise that we're repeating history, because these idiots don't know history. They're not taught history. But that's my 2 cents. What do you think? And I'll see you next video.